Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the shop. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and we're kind of at that in-between season. Christmas is happening in 2 days, so shortly thereafter, I'm going to be clearing all the Christmas out of the shop, which is going to leave a lot of empty spaces that I need to fill. And so it's a good excuse and a good reason to go into the stash behind me that drives a lot of you crazy and start pulling some projects. So I'm going to show them to you first. I'm going to tell you the basic painting that I'm going to do on them first, because you don't need to see me do basic painting, but we need to get the base thing done. So this is first up, and as much as I had originally thought maybe I'd do it up for Christmas, I didn't get to it, and I don't think that it has to be Christmas. It's got glue blobs on it that I have to get off, and it's got wear and scratches and dings, and it was $5.50, $55. Oh my goodness. So maybe about $1.50 off. So it was maybe $4. So I'm going to get a base coat of white. I'm going to chip off all of the glue first, sand down what I need to get stickers off. And then I'm going to use Casement by Fusion. So it's an all-in-one paint. I'm going to get a coat of Fusion on it. Because I'm doing white over white, I may be able to get away with just one coat. We'll see. But this is going to go white. This is just a rack, right? Just kind of nice. Pegs for hanging things. These are always useful to have if you've got a booth or you've got a little shop. People are always looking for some kind of hangers for coats or shirts or aprons or that sort of thing. This is nice as lattice. But I want this to go a little bit darker. This feels like raw wood, so I'm going to do coffee on it. So this is just instant coffee dissolved in water, and I'm going to do a darker stain on it. We're then going to go light, but I want a darker base, and so I'm going to get that on and dry before I go lighter. So I'll be back. So that was just getting coffee. Cheap, instant coffee from the dollar store. Don't use good stuff. You don't have to. But if you've got, like if you make pots of coffee at a time and you've got extra coffee, use that. I just don't drink coffee. So I have really cheap dollar store instant coffee that I just dilute with water. That's what's happening there. This guy, we're gonna go light with a little metallic, but I'm gonna start with a base coat of black. So it's gonna get painted black before you see it again. And this guy, really kind of old fashioned, but I like the idea of it. So this one I'm gonna do in a cream. And I'm thinking, because I have it open on the shelf and I'm just looking past you guys over onto the paint shelf behind you, I see that I've got some cream. So I'm gonna do kind of a cream color as opposed to stark white. So I'm gonna go cream on all of it. Paint the whole thing, frame, backing paper, duck, all cream. So I'm gonna get that all painted. So that's 4 different projects we're gonna do out of the stash. Yay. And I think, that sounds like, oh, great, I'm really reducing the stash. Not so much, you can't even see I made a dent. But you know what? It makes me happy that I have future projects ready and waiting for me. But these are the first ones that we're gonna try and clear up. Maybe January, we'll do a lot of thrift flips, getting rid of a lot of the stash. Sounds like a plan. It may go the way of New Year's resolutions, but it sounds like a plan. So I'm gonna get these things first painting done, and then we'll reconvene. Our kind of lattice hooks are all dry. So this is the stain. This is just using the coffee. I did 2 coats. The first one was kind of light, so I added more coffee powder to the mix so that it would go darker, and this is the result. So this could be all that you wanted to do. Maybe you just want to seal it now and be done. You could use any kind of polyacrylic sealer. if you wanted, and then you have this in a nice darker, richer brown. I want to do a little bit of white over it. So I am going to take a little bit of casement, and I'm just doing a little bit. This is Casement by DIY, and I'm taking a really ratty used chip brush, and I'm dipping it in, then pouncing that off, and I just want to lightly start adding some white. So this is called dry brushing because we had very little paint on there, but I want it to still show the brown through. So we're going to do that over the whole piece. And this is an alternative to, I mean, if I wanted, I could have painted the whole thing white and then distressed back to the brown, which would have given us a whiter finish with just a little bit of the brown. This is kind of giving us a little bit more of the brown showing through. So it's going to be a little bit more aged looking, depending upon how much I do of the dry brushing over top. But you can see I've just got a plastic bag here with a little bit of paint in the middle, and then I'm using the edges to kind of pounce off a bunch of my white, and I'm just going to drag my brush along. And you'll find, because I've got a lot of the edging, the edges will be whiter, right? There's a little bit more white on the edging, and we just carry on. All right, so this is how this turned out, and I don't like it. It just looks too insubstantial. It doesn't really look cute. I think I'd own it for a long time. I decided as well, I didn't like these hooks. So, you know, sometimes I have to kind of do a quick thing to it and realize I got to do a longer thing to it. So here's what I'm doing now. And, you know, I could erase and not show you all the first parts that I did, but I think that you just have to see that sometimes one plan isn't the end all and be all, that sometimes you need to try something to discover, that's not working. And I think what it is that this wood has got some little rough bits to it, and so the dry brushing just kind of accentuated that rather than minimized it. And the dry brushing on these kind of little spindle tops just weren't the thing. I mean, I will save these. I think these make great little people. So I could see my doing some kind of a craft with them that way, as opposed to little hooks. So what I'm doing instead now is we are going to, I went to my paint, my open paint, and when I was testing out different all-in-one colors before I brought in Fusion, I had some melange, and I quite love this blue. And then I have a bag that I thrifted from the Salvation Army for $3 of these old porcelain knobs, which are very cute. And they've got kind of the antique kind of brassy copper look with the white against the blue that I think is just going to be super adorable. And so that's what we're doing. I'm putting these on, taking these wooden guys off, painting it this color, adding these, and then it's done. And sometimes it's the second plan for something that works. Remember our finial that started off that kind of flat beigey brownie color, kind of this color. I roughly painted it black, obviously, since the base isn't fully done. But now we're going to paint it white. And it's still not done when we do the white, but that's the next coat. So just so you know, black, then white, then we come back with this one. Our duck needs to be sealed. It was painted in DIY paint, which does not have a built-in sealer, which allows you to do all kinds of other cool things with it. But I'm just taking clear wax by DIY, and I'm going to put that clear wax over the entire piece. Now, I haven't done any major distressing to this or anything because we still have another step to do while the wax is wet. And I don't want to do kind of overkill on this piece. Once you have your clear wax on here, you can start doing some aging. You could use like some decrepit dust, which is like a brown dust. You could use dark and decrepit liquid patina or glazes. I have a little bit of bohemian blue wax. So I mix this up for another project, which is why I'm thinking of using it. I just took some of the DIY clay-based paint, a little bit of it, added it to some clear wax, mixed it all up, made my blue wax. I still have my clear brush, but what I'm looking at doing is just taking a bit of this wax instead of using like a brown aging wax, and I am adding it into a lot of my creases and my details just to sort of highlight some of those details a little bit. And I can take my clear wax and just kind of soften, feather out those lines a little bit so that they're not so harsh or specific. So that's one of the reasons that regardless of the color of wax that you use, that you want to have your base wax still wet so that you've got time to be able to play with that wax, to be able to move it around still so that it's not super harsh, that you've got we've got the crease coming up here. Let's put a little bit of that blue coming up, but just so that you can still move it, right? You can still get some of the hints of it. So I'm just going to play with some of that to be able to add in some shading, and rather than it being in the brown, I'm just going blue. And that's the beauty of being able to make some of your own waxes, is that you can color them and be able to add those colors in on your pieces however you want to. You can even go multi-tone. Now, our little church house, it looks like a church. Okay, I can call it what I want. It's all cleaned up with the white paint, and really that's all it needed. It was just really kind of scratched and dirty and old looking. But it had some spots with big bunches of glue that when I popped it off, there are actual holes in there. So there's 3 holes, and what I went looking for was I have these little faux crystal knobs, one that's bigger, a couple that are smaller. These are all things that I thrifted. They've got gunk on them, so I'm going to try and clean that off as best I can. But these fit in those holes. So, like, look, you know, little forcing, they fit. So I'm just going to put those little crystal things in there. I'm going to glue them in. Maybe it doesn't need it. And then I have this thrifted bag, $3.49 less 30%, so $30, $60, $90, so about $2.50. And what I liked about this, I had thought of for Christmas and I just never got around to using them, is that they have some little, you know, clean the fuzz off them. But they have some, rather than just bottle brush trees, they have some bushes. And I was thinking if I take them off the stand and cut off the bottom, then I could put them down on either side of the door. I just have to look for a couple that are the same relative size so that they don't look too odd. Clean them up and get those glued in place. And then this one's done. So I'm just going to attach some little bushes, you know, kind of get them sized down in there, my little crystal knobs, and then this guy's good to go. So I just have to see what I got here. There's a couple of different little styles and sizes, see what size works if I got two that match, and get them cut down to size and get those glued in place. So I've just got a little, oh, there's a tree in there. All right, now this may, if you're really paying close attention, look a little different than the one that I started out with, because I dropped the other one and it smashed to smithereens on the floor. Luckily, I had another one that was similar in my stash, and I have painted it black and then painted it white. So we're back where the other one would have been had I not dropped it. And you know what? Stuff happens. And I just thought I'd better tell you, because if you were really paying close attention and noticed that this was different, similar, but different, you might have thought that I was lying to you. And you know what? Stuff happens sometimes. So what I am taking is 320 grit sandpaper, and I am just lightly distressing this. So I'm not getting it super distressed. You can see down here at the bottom, I'm just going for a light distressing, but that's why I wanted the black down first, so that I could get a little bit of that black showing through. I'm going to do a little more to it beyond that, but at this stage, I am going to get this all going. My goodness, words, Cindy, words. I'm going to get it all sanded. I'm going to get it all lightly distressed, dust it off, and then we'll come back for the last step on this one. So you can see this is all lightly distressed. Now, you could be finished here. If this is the look that you're after, kind of that shabby chic look, you could be done. You could leave it as is in the matte finish. You could do a satin or even a glossy top coat if you wanted it shinier, and be done. I'm doing a little more just because. So what I have in this, and this is just like a little dollar store shot glass, I just use to mix up small amounts of things. So this is a liquid patina, so it's like a top coat. It dries clear, it just looks creamy now. And what I wanted was to add a little bit of gold, but I want it to be very light. I don't want it to be super gold. So my two choices were this. I have Golden Ticket by DIY, which is a little bit more brassy, and I have this really soft gold from American Decor, Deco Arts, and that I just get from the craft store. And that's the one that I'm going with, because again, I just wanted it super soft. So it's getting a little thick, but that'll be okay. I don't need tons of this. Again, I just want a little. So I'm just going to stir it into that top coat. So in essence, I'm going to be sealing the piece with the top coat, but I don't want it to be super gold. Now, you're not really going to be able to tell until really it dries, but I think that you get the idea, just even as I add it on here, how translucent it's going to be. So you can see it's just really faint. Now I can go back in after it's dried and use some of the gold or a brassier gold just over the top in accents. if I choose. Right now, I was just looking for kind of a softer look, and we'll see when it dries how I feel about that. And that's sometimes what happens with some of the finishes I discover is that I go in with the softest version first, because I can always add more color. I can always add more. What I can't really do is take away without having to paint over or repaint the whole thing. So with this, what I was more looking for was just kind of a lightly golden piece. You can kind of see the difference here, right, between it. This has mostly dried, and what I've decided that I'm going to do is I'm going to stay with the translucent theme, and I have Golden Rule by DIY, which is a gold wax. So wax over top of a top coat is fine. It is not a gilding wax though, so it is not as opaque as like a gilding wax or a rub and buff product. And I am going to take a little bit on my finger, and we're talking just a little bit, and I'm going to lightly kind of dust the tips of the little artichoke, and we're just doing this very lightly. And I'll hit just a little bit of some of the lower details as well. But again, we're staying very, very light on this. And the camera's probably not going to pick it up from here, but it's just going to add just a little bit more, just a little more detail, just a bit. Let's take a look at our little updates. Now the first one, very subtle, is our duck. Now if you recall, this was patterned, this was wood, this was carved wood. There was nothing wrong with it apart from it was very dated, but having something like this is just very discreet. It's just very soft. It's not something that's got strong colors. It's just got the raised texture to it, right? That we've got the duck in relief. And instead of doing it with the kind of the cream and the brown, we brought in a little bit of the blue wax, that darker blue wax, instead, just to be able to highlight it, create a little bit of the shadowing, to show it off a little bit more, but keeping it still quite neutral. So instead of it being something major that's going to draw your eye, it's more of a neutral decor piece instead. We then had our hooks. It goes this way. So if you recall, we did the coffee staining, and then I did the white dry brushing, and I really didn't like it. So we started over, and there's nothing wrong with that. Instead, we painted it in a lovely kind of sea blue, and we changed out those wooden knobs for these Thrifted porcelain ones, which were only $3, probably less the discount, so there you go. And I love it now, so infinitely better. Never feel locked into a particular idea, right? That try something, and then if you don't like it, if it doesn't work, paint covers all kinds of sins. It fixed this so that it becomes something much nicer, and it's got the built-in hanging hardware on the back, so perfect. We had that other little church, and this one, it was already white, but we repainted it white and made it much brighter. We added these faux crystal knobs, so there's 3 of them, a larger one up top, smaller here, and a small one here, and we added a couple of little faux bushes, and it's just super cute now. It's very clean looking, it's crisp, updated, and ready for somebody to love it again. The last one was the replacement one, since I smashed the original. But here we did the black so that we could distress back to it. So sometimes like if you know that you want to distress something, take a look at the existing color. If you don't want to distress back to that color, then you need to start by repainting it, painting the base. I wanted to distress back to that softer black. We then painted it white, distressed back to the black, and then we added just some pale shimmery gold highlights. So it's not gold, it's not in your face gold, but it's got all of that detailing showing because of some of that gold and some of the distressing. So we've got a little bit more happening than just the pure white and black. You could have stopped with that, but we did just a little bit more. So these are all things that are easily accomplished, so that whether you're looking at these items or similar items in your thrift stores and what is involved in updating them, putting them into a booth, putting them into your home, all of these were minimal fixes. Little more work because we started over. And even though we started over on this one, it wasn't a lot of work. It's a little bit of paint. We painted on the coffee. I liked that dark wood. You could have stopped there. You could have just sealed it. I didn't like it, the dry brushed white. I could have just painted it white and distressed it if I had wanted. Instead, once I found these knobs, I knew that I wanted to add a bit more of a contrasting color. And now this is infinitely cuter. And sometimes that's what it takes to get to whatever the final idea is or what the final vision is. You sometimes take a little bit of a right-hand turn. Sometimes it's a big U-turn, but be open to letting go of the first idea that you had when that first idea either doesn't work or just looks really bad. It happens. And sometimes the end result had to take that turn to lead you to something infinitely better. Let me know what you think of these ones, guys. Love to hear from you as always, and definitely look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.